Today we're going to be analyzing and ranking set 4 Vendetta legends in Riftbound. So right now we've seen all 9 legends and all of their champion units. We're still waiting for a few signature spells, but overall we have a lot. So I want to look at these. I want to give my first impressions. This is the Monday of the second week of reveals, which means that we've seen some things, but we've not seen everything. Okay, so take this with a pinch of salt, but I think we've seen enough to have a good idea about what the legends look like. Okay, let's start by diving in and looking at Akali. So Akali is red and green, which is Fury and Calm. It looks good. Okay, so there is a constant action speed ability that's always live. Okay, so if it's your turn, you may move a friendly unit in a showdown to base, and if I'm empowered, ready it. So this can be used even without empowering, which is good. It means that you can move something and move it back out. The reason that you would do this is to get value out of move triggers. So I think we're going to see this deck taking advantage of cards like Stellar Corn Herder, Jin Murderous Artist, I believe it is, and just moving those to generate more resources, to draw more cards or get more runes. Now, if we empower this Akali for 3 energy and 1 power, that's now going to come into play ready, so we can actually do it a third time. So again, doing that with cards like Aurelia Fervent as well could be really strong. To move Aurelia in, move her back, choose her to move her back, re-ready her so she gains another might, and then move her in again. So really interesting legend. I like the ability to move things. I also like the ability to bail out the showdown. I think we're going to see this legend used in ways where it can commit to a combat and then almost, your opponent throws too much in, you can pull back and sort of waste their resources. The color pairing is incredibly strong. I think there's a lot of good synergies. I think this is going to be a real strong contender of a deck. I think what we've seen from Akali right now looks really good. That combined with 2 good champion units. So our champion units, we have our 3-cost Akali champion unit and our 4-cost Akali champion unit. Both very strong. I think this is a deck that has a lot of things in the right place, and when you top that off with Shuriken Flip, our signature spell, I think Akali's got all the right pieces. So Shuriken Flip is 1 cost, it has the flow keyword, and it moves a unit. So it does everything the deck's trying to do. Akali seems really put together. I think this is going to be a very strong deck. I think this is going to be one of the higher tier decks. I think we're looking at this being one of the top 2 decks of this set of this new set. That said, we'll move on to Renekton. Renekton initially, looked like a deck that was a little bit challenged. A little bit early on, it was doing a lot, but then it was almost counterintuitive to the plan it wanted to play. Typically we see these red-orange decks either ramping or throwing out units, and this Renekton kind of does both, so it's a little bit strange. On reaction, you can tap the legend and recycle 2, pay 2 power, to add 2 energy to your mana pool. So you may spend this energy only to play units or activate abilities of units. What that means is that we're using this to play units, not play spells. Okay, so we can't play this at reaction speed to have +2 for challenge or something like that. Instead, we have to use it to play units. What this means is that in the early game, Renekton can cheat out units earlier. So on turn 1, if you chose to do so, you could recycle 2 runes to get an additional 2 energy in your mana pool and play a 4 cost. So we could play Kaiser, we could play other similar powerful cards that really push the tempo. Because of that, I think Renekton has some potential, but I think it's going to take some time to really find the right way to optimize this. Choosing to recycle your runes is a heavy cost to pay, and I think getting these lines right is really going to matter. I think if you're recycling your runes too much, I think you're going to get punished, particularly in the late game. But alternatively, Renekton might take a sort of volibear approach, where we're playing larger units, and instead we're going to use this to cheat out larger units in the mid game. I think it's a really interesting legend. I think it's super cool in concept. I think there's some real power there. The Renekton champion units, particularly the red champion unit, what we've seen is good. Renekton's red champion unit has no power cost. It's got Accelerate, so these are keywords that you want to see. At the point of recording, we've not seen the orange champion unit. So maybe that might influence things. But I think the red is enough. The red is enough to play the deck comfortably. The signature spell is action speed, and it's a 4 cost. Now, the challenge with this is obviously you can get defied, and I think we're potentially moving into a meta of a fair amount of counter spells, with purple decks, green decks continuing to shine. But if it does resolve, it says action speed. This turn, double a unit's might and give it pay to energy to pay to power rather to ready me. What this means is that you're going to have a unit that can ready itself multiple times in a turn. Okay, so this isn't just a once per turn ready. You could use this multiple times. So this to me looks like one of your finishes. It's one of the cards that you're going to play to end the game. You know, you're on 6 points. You're going to use a unit, double its might, push it in, push it over to the other battlefield, recycle all your runes. It's a gambit. It's powerful, but again, you know, being in defy range makes this a little bit weaker. You couldn't make it cost power because then you might not have runes to recycle. So I understand, but it's a bit of a double-edged sword, the signature spell. So I think it's great in particular times of the game, but I think if it gets countered, if it gets stopped, it can be quite a big punish. You know, especially if you do resolve the spell. You start using power to ready things. You win one combat, maybe then lose the other combat. Maybe you lose your unit. It doesn't pay off and you're back down to 0 runes. Overall, though, Renekton looks really strong. I think he's got a lot of untapped potential. I don't think he's immediately as maybe consistent as Akali in a sense. You know, Akali's got that 3-cost champion that you can play on curve. Whilst, you know, Renekton, we're currently looking at bigger champions. Your signature spell is bigger. It doesn't have the flow keyword, these kind of things. So I would put him a little bit below there, but I think he's a really powerful legend. I think we're going to see some good stuff. Then on to Zed. So Zed at first saw a little bit of backlash, I guess. Not because of the legend. So what the legend says is that when you banish a card you own, you empower him. So when you banish a card, he becomes empowered. At action speed, you can disempower him, tap the legend to discard one and then draw one. So he's a legend that essentially does what Zon Warrens does. This, to me, seems quite desirable, especially in purple, especially now with the flow keyword. We're able to discard cards that either we don't want or cards that we don't mind having in the discard, or cards that we actually want in the discard in order to get value out of that. So there's a lot of different ways we can go with that, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Where Zed saw backlash wasn't in the legend, but rather in the signature spell. Okay, so Deathmark is the signature spell for Zed, Master of Shadows. Deathmark says, burn 3. So burn is a new keyword, which basically means put the top cards of your deck into your trash. 3 is the number that we're putting into the trash, so we're burning 3. You do that, and then you play a 0 might shadow clone unit token. So it doesn't say where to play it. You can play this anywhere, but it does have 0 might. These tokens are sort of Zed's mechanic. This is how the deck's supposed to play. And these tokens, when they attack, you may banish a unit from your trash in order to give it Assault 4. So I think the reason why we're thinking about putting units in the discard here is so that we've got things to give Assault 4 to. What is cool about this card is that it has flow. So it has flow for 1 energy and 2 power. So it's one of the rare flow cards where the energy cost is actually lower than the printed cost of the card, but the power cost is higher to offset that. I think the general consensus is, you know, the power of this card really depends on how many more cards we get with the flow keyword. Right now, there's actually quite a few cards that have the flow keyword, so we're not getting the most value out of burning. But if we get better cards to burn, then actually, you know, Deathmark is probably going to look quite powerful. But right now, it's not maybe where it needs to be. That said, Zed's a legend, Master of Shadows, is incredibly powerful. Discard and draw is really useful. Being able to empower by banishing cards, it seems quite easy to achieve with flow cards that will banish themselves, or the shadow clones to do so. I think Zed's package looks okay. Then when we combine that with the champion units, Zed's champion units are both revealed. We have a 4 cost and a 5 cost. So our 4 cost is 4 and 1 power. Zed from the Shadows. You may discard one as an additional cost. When you played me, if you paid the cost, play a Shadow Clone token. So what that's going to do is essentially it's going to play as 2 units instead of 1. The discard, if you discard a card with flow, hopefully doesn't feel too bad. I might also suggest maybe this is why Scrap Heap got banned previously. I think Zed with Scrap Heap would probably be one of, if not the best deck, being able to get that constant value. Instead, you know, most of the cards were discarded. They might have flow, but actually, you know, you do want to see them. Alternatively, you could play the 5-cost Zed champion unit, which is Zed without a sound. This is the purple champion unit. Zed without a sound says when I conquer, play a 0-might shadow clone unit to your base. You can pay 1 and recycle 1 at action speed to move a shadow clone you control and Zed to each other's locations. So what this is doing is this is tied to his ability, but with Zed and his shadow clone. The power of this is that if you attack with the shadow clone, it means that you can use Zed to swap Zed and the shadow clone on defense, so you're defending for 5. Or alternatively, it means that if Zed conquers, you can then use the shadow clone to swap with him to save the Zed if he's in trouble. I think this is really cool. I think it's nice that there's no power cost. I think the movement pattern's probably going to be quite strong. There's 2 ways of playing Zed that seems to be farming. One of those ways is the sort of miracle package, which we saw in set 2 with Draven. That relies on discarding and drawing cards, playing from the discard, playing Rasa, that kind of thing, putting cards in the trash. In doing so, it's building consistency. We're digging through the deck. We're getting the cards we need. It previously was very powerful with cards like Ezreal, with Scrap Heap potentially in this use case. Scrap Heap would be really useful, and Cold Shot. But right now, Cold Shot and Scrap Heap are banned. What that means is the Miracle Package isn't maybe as strong as it used to be, but with Zed's Legend ability, we still get extra value being able to draw more cards. So I could see Zed being played as a Miracle deck. Alternatively, Zed might be played as a sort of mid-range purple deck, you know, similar to decks like Draven, that are really powerful. You know, they're really powerful in utilizing purple tools. Purple tools like Starcrossed, Starcrossed, Rebuke, these kind of cards. If Zed can utilize these kind of cards, we're probably going to look at a mid-range version that plays cards like Heisa Survivor, that kind of thing, whilst using the Zed to play some Shadow Clones and be able to only commit so much. Right now, it could go either way, but I think Zed is a really underrated legend. I don't want to go too hard and say that I think Zed is the best legend, but I think he's really up there. I think it's such a strong color combo, and I think we're going to see more cards with the flow mechanic. So based on that, I think that Zed is one of the better decks of the Vendetta season. I think he's one of the better decks of the reveal. I think he's at least as strong as Renekton. I think right now, with no bans in place, with no additional bans, I think he's probably just under Akali. I'm happy to be proven wrong. Zed might be much better. He might be much worse. In my opinion, as a red purple deck, the ceiling is really high, but the floor is only so low. So, in my opinion, Zed can only be so bad. I don't see him being worse than a mid tier deck. I think he's probably quite good. Drawing cards on a legend is quite good. Next is Nasus. So Nasus is the big dog of the set. Nasus is a mind and calm legend. What the legend says is when you play a unit, gear, or activated ability with energy cost 7 or more, you may exhaust me to ready up to 2 runes. That's quite a heavy cost in order to ready 2 runes, and you have to exhaust the legend to do so. I think the challenge here is that we currently have legends in the game like Annie, who unconditionally readies 2 runes at the end of the turn. There is no stipulation. Annie will ready 2 runes. Whilst in this case, Nasus is required to play something that costs 7 or more. Now, the only benefit to Nasus over Annie is that instead of being at the end of your turn, you can do this midway through the turn. So if you play something that costs 7 during your turn, you can exhaust to ready. If somehow you to do this during your opponent's turn, you could do the same. There's maybe some potential here, but right now it seems like a lot of steps to do something. You know, having to pay 7 energies is a lot in order to just ready 2 runes. So it's just essentially refunding 2 runes. That might combo well with the rest of the kit. We'll see how that goes on. But right now we also have the signature spell, which is Siphon and Strike. So Siphon and Strike says deal 4 to a unit at a battlefield. If you control 7 or more runes, deal 7 to it instead. When it dies this turn, channel 1 rune exhausted. The problem with this is there is no synergy with the legend. I feel like this should cost 7 but be reduced so that you could ready runes with the legend. But there is no synergy. It's a 4 energy, which means it could also be defied. But you know, paying 4 to do 4 to unit at battlefield, it feels a little bit like a bad Void Seeker. It's not even action speed. Yeah, so Siphoning Strike to deal 7 is okay, and channeling a rune is okay. This is quite an underwhelming signature spell. I think the lack of synergy is problematic. I don't think this is particularly strong. The 2 champion units also don't really work well with, I mean, really either the legend or the signature spell. So Nasus Ascended, we got a preview of right at the start of the season. Nasus Ascended, we saw in the Vendetta video. We saw that it had an Empower of 8 and When I Conquer something. Unfortunately, that When I Conquer was revealed to be you score 1 point. So Nasus Ascended cost 8 energy and 1 power. He's Deflect 2, but no other ability. He has an ability when you empower him for another 8, but that's only going to score a point on Conquer. I just, you know, as of right now, and I could be wrong, I think this is really weak. I think there's so many easier ways to score a point from holding, you know, cards like Ari Alluring from set 1 that will gain a point when you hold. Even Ivan Front Wall, you know, I play some Ivan Front Wall. I don't think it's a good card, but it's so much easier to achieve than paying 16. And you know that can be done on that point can be gained both on hold and on Conquer. The fact that this is just score 1 point on Conquer is so bad. Honestly, even if you play this, tap your legend to ready 2 runes. I don't understand what you're supposed to do with those 2 runes. I don't think this is going to see a lot of play, which is a shame because both the artworks for this card is really cool. The blue champion is a 5 cost champion with 6 might. It also has a power cost. What this says is once per turn, when an enemy unit dies here, channel 1 rune exhausted. So again, we're relying on gaining runes, but that means that realistically, you're probably going to kill something when you conquer, channel a rune exhausted, and then this unit's maybe going to die, or maybe you're going to save it, but I'm just not seeing the vision. You know, as of right now, I'm channeling a rune, but what am I channeling a rune for? What's the goal here? You know, if I'm expected to play these heavy cost cards, I should be getting some value. Right now, I don't see the value of Nasus. I think this might be the weakest legend in Vendetta. My initial impressions is that this is the weakest legend in Vendetta by quite a fair margin. I could be wrong, but right now, Nasus is my weakest legend of Vendetta. Next up, we have Shen, Eye of Twilight. So Shen is calm and order. He has just a nice simple ability, which is at action speed. You may spend the legend, give a friendly unit tank this turn. Okay, so really simple. We're just giving something tank. It makes sense. It's action speed, so we can do it on both players' turn. It seems straightforward enough. We don't have a signature spell for Shen yet, but notably we do have both his champion units. The champion units synergize with the legend, and this is quite nice to see. The epic Shen is Shen, leader of the Kinku Order. He has shield. When I hold, if there is exactly 1 other unit you control here, you score 1 point. He costs 6 energy and 2 power, but has 7 might. So with shield, he defends for 8. What that means is if we make this tank, then that's quite impressive. I think combined with other cards like maybe you want to defend with a Sona, so you have 4 runes up, and combined with some of the other newly announced cards like Key Barrier, this might be quite a strong combo. What that means is it looks like Shen is going to be a hold deck. It looks like we're playing cards that want to hold. But again, you know, we might be able to set up Shen plus Sona, Shen plus Ari, and utilizing, you know, some spells in hand to get maximum value out of that. Might be a cool way to play. Interestingly, this and the other Shen champion unit that I'm going to talk about in a moment rely on holding with just one other unit. So it looks like we're playing 2 powerful units, 2-1 place, and defending those 2 units. I think it's a really cool concept for a deck. I think some of the artwork is really cool. And you know, I think this deck has potential to be a decent deck. I don't imagine this will be one of the strongest decks of the format, but I do imagine that this will be playable. I think this will be a playable deck. I think there'll be a skill ceiling to this deck, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. You know, I think there's some fun shenanigans. I've seen some cool things so far, and I think Shen might be okay. The other Shen champion unit is Shen, Scourge of Shadows, who says, when I hold, if there's exactly one other unit you control here, draw 1 card. He costs 1 less energy and 1 less power. So he's a 5 energy and 1 power with a might of 6. I think it's an awkward condition to draw a card, but I mean, for example, if you had both Shens on a battlefield, you're defending for 14, because you use 6 from the green Shen, and you have 8 from the yellow Shen on defense. You give one of them tank, you're defending for 14, you're going to score a point, draw a card. So I think this is the dream play. Well, what I need right now to know exactly where to place Shen is the signature spell. The signature spell, signature gear, signature unit, whatever it may be for Shen. That's really going to decide whether this is one of the sort of weaker legends, or whether it can maybe compete sometimes with the big boys. I feel pretty confident that this isn't going to be one of the best decks of the set. I don't think this is going to be an absolute contender to win a regional qualifier, win the regional. But I do think it's going to be playable. You might see this deck in your skirmishes and so on. So right now for me, Shen is in the middle tier, partly because of some of the great support cards that have come with the deck. But I like it, and I look forward to seeing how Shen progresses through the set. Next up, we have Jayce, Defender of Tomorrow. Jayce is our first mind-body legend in Riftbound. This is a really interesting color combination, in my opinion. I think this color combination has a lot of potential and possible combos that we might see. Jayce might utilize that. Jayce is a deck that interacts with gear. So all the Jayce cards that I'm going to talk about are all relating to working with gear. I think that's a cool angle to go for. I like the idea. When I get into the cards, we'll see some strengths and some of the flaws that come with that, however. So Jayce has Empower 2 and Recycle 2. The good thing about empowering on a legend, however, yes, it might cost more, but the good thing is you only need to empower once. Most legends do not spend the Empower to get their ability. If they do spend the Empower, then it will say Disempower me. But usually those that require being disempowered, you don't pay energy to empower in the first place. There's another requirement. In this case, once you've empowered him, he can pay 1 and tap himself to ready 2 gear. That's pretty good. Even before he's empowered, you can pay 1 and tap him to ready 1 gear. So we're going to empower to be able to ready 2. This is going to synergize with some of the newly announced cards that we've had, where Jayce is going to get a lot of value. So on first read, some of these cards didn't look too great, but with Jayce's ability, they look quite strong. Before we talk about other cards that synergize with the legend, I think it's really important to talk about the champion units here. So Jayce already has a champion unit from set 2, which is Jayce Man of Progress. Jayce Man of Progress is a 4 cost unit, so it's got 4 energy cost and 4 might, no power cost. When you play me, you may kill a friendly gear. If you do, you may play a gear with energy cost of no more than 7 from your hand, ignoring its energy cost. That means you still have to pay the power cost, but it means that you're paying no energy for it. So we're going to cheat out a bigger gear. The power of that has been previously in playing cards like Vanguard Armory, but Jayce is no longer a deck that fits into the order domain. It's not a yellow deck. So Vanguard Armory can't be played. What that means is that we're still waiting for sort of a powerful gear to really get value out of that in the Jayce deck. But that's potentially very powerful. Potentially very, very powerful to cheat out a gear in a deck that's going to already play gear. Our newly announced Jayce champions are also very strong. I think Jayce is almost suffering from success here. There are so many different ways to play. We have Jayce Hammer in Hand. He is the orange champion unit. He has an energy cost of 4 and a power cost of 1 with 5 might. So already I'm thinking this is quite a strong unit in terms of might for cost. 4 energy, but 5 might is quite strong. He says, when I become ready, choose 1 to give me this turn. Assault 2, Deflect 2, and Gank in. The first thing I want to note is that when I become ready means this might trigger multiple times in a turn. So you ready in your awaken phase, and then you give him one of these. Then you might move him to a battlefield. He might score the point, and then you might play first mate, and then you might ready him, and then give him gank in, and then move him across. So Jayce Hammer in Hand, I think it's going to be a really powerful card, not just within the Jayce deck, but sort of spread across the set. I think this is going to see its way into other decks. I think it's a strong card. In this particular deck, I think right now Jayce is trending towards playing really gear-based decks, playing like a gear-based control kind of style is what things are looking like right now. Because of that, I don't think Jayce Hammer in Hand is going to see a lot of play within that specific deck, but I think this is a great card regardless. Jayce Brilliant Inventor is probably the Jayce card that will be played in the deck, potentially as the chosen champion, potentially not. He says, when you play me or the first time you play a non-token gear, each turn you may ready something besides me that's exhausted. He costs 6 and 1 power, he has 6 might, so his stats are completely fine. But being able to constantly ready something is useful. Something in Riftbound means anything. It means you can ready your legend, it means you can ready a rune, it means you can ready a gear, it means you can ready a unit. This is quite unique. We've only previously seen this with a Misfortune champion back in set 1. Ready something is very powerful. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what this does. Right now, I'm not sure if there is strong enough gear to really get value out of Jayce Brilliant Inventor, but I think there will be. As of right now, though, the way that Jayce seems to want to play is by playing some gear, getting value out of that gear to do something. Right now, for me, the something is a little bit unclear. But Questionable Tome is a new card in the game where you can empower it, disempower, tap to draw one. I think Jayce is probably trying to utilize this to draw for certain cards. This draw engine might be something that is useful if we're playing a control style of play, like Aurora. I think there is a chance that Jayce is played as an Aurora deck that plays Aurora and Promising Future in order to try and cheat out Aurora quickly. I think Questionable Tome could be a strong draw engine within this deck. And I think Jayce could be quite a good Aurora deck, if I'm being completely honest. I think right now this might be where the deck heads towards. Hopefully not. Hopefully we see some more creativity. I think the concept of Jayce is really cool, and I would really love to see that explored. But right now, my assessment of Jayce is as an Aurora deck, and I think as an Aurora deck, he's probably going to be pretty decent. I think this color combo is pretty good. I think it's quite consistent at delivering on Aurora. That said, overall, I still think it's weaker than Akali as a whole. Playing Aurora only does so much. I think Akali has a lot of tools in her arsenal. I think the color combination is incredibly obnoxious. So Jayce would be below Akali for me. As of right now, once we see his signature, once we see more cards in the set, Jayce might become one of the best decks, if not the best deck of this current set. But right now, Jayce is just pretty good. Our next legend is Mel, Soul's Reflection. So Mel initially received a lot of criticism at the start because the legend ability doesn't read that good. So what the legend says is, when you empower something else, empower me. You can disempower her and tap the legend to give a unit at a battlefield -2 might this turn. That is not action speed, that is not reaction speed, that is the sort of slow speed that means you have to play it during your turn. I think this is quite weak. Giving something -2 is fine, but only being able to do so during your turn when there's not already things on the stack isn't great. I think the color combo of Mel being Mind and Chaos is quite strong, and I think the potential synergy is good, but the pace of this isn't great. You know, having to empower something in order to get value out of this when empower is not part of the natural package, it seems, isn't super great. The legend ability is not the best. What makes Mel really cool is her signature spell. This is where people really changed their tide on how they felt about Mel. Her signature spell is Rebuttal. It is a 1 energy cost card that has 1 power cost. This spell is reaction speed. It says choose a spell with energy cost no more than 4. You may recycle a rune. If you do, gain control of it and you make new choices for it. Otherwise, counter it. So what this means is this is essentially Defy. It has the same cost as Defy, which is 1 and 1, and it counters a spell that costs 4 or less. The first difference between this and Defy is that there is no power cost limit. So you can now counter Falling Star, you can counter other similar cards that, like Rebuke, that have a power cost higher than 1 that you couldn't defy. The other thing is you can not just counter it, you can take control of the spell. So if you choose to pay an additional power, you can now take control of the Fallen Star. You can now take control of the Starcross. You can now take control of the Rebuke. This, for 1 energy, is incredibly, incredibly strong. That said, though, it is just a counter spell. So even though it's a counter spell that might be used to push into something else, it is just a counter spell. Like we saw with Lilia, people had the same kind of impression of Lilia, that she was bad, and then they saw the signature spell and thought, this deck is good. But the reality is, counter spells only come up so much in certain decks at certain times. Incredibly powerful card, easily the most powerful counter spell in the game. How much sway on the meta that's going to have really depends on how the meta is looking for spells. Right now, though, this is incredibly powerful. It makes people excited to play Mel. I'm looking forward to trying that too. Mel's champion units both do things that are a little bit different. So I'll start with Mel Defiant Soul. This is the purple champion unit. It has a 5 energy cost and it has 4 might. On Empower, you discard a spell. So you discard a spell to empower this Mel. So different empower cost, discard a spell, it's a little bit different. When I become empowered, banish an enemy at a battlefield with 3 might or less. This, the way that this is supposed to work is that you empower the Mel, you use the Mel legend to reduce something's might by 2, and then banish it. Essentially what that means is when combined with the legend, you can banish something with up to 5 might, but at a battlefield that can be chosen. I think this is okay, it's got no power cost. I think we need to see more of the set in order to get value out of this. The real value out of this comes from being able to disempower and then re-empower. Right now, because it's a sort of one-time effect to banish something, I don't think this card is really great. But we will see what comes out of the rest of the set. Mel Awakened, however, Mel, newly awakened, has an energy cost of 4, a power cost of 1, and 4 might. She says, when you play me, draw 1. So she replaces herself, which is really cool. You play her from the champion zone, you draw a card, you get an additional card in hand. She can be empowered by paying 3 energy, and when empowered, your spells and abilities can't be countered. If a spell or ability that would give minus might to units, it gets an additional -1. So if we're using this with the Mel Legend that gives -2 to a unit, it now does -3 instead. What that means is that Mel's like looking to be this really big disruptive deck that's throwing spells that are doing things. I think the challenge with this unit is that in order to get maximum value, you have to be able to empower immediately, which would cost you 7 and 1. That's quite expensive. If you just put her on board, she's going to be one of those remove on site cards. You know, that's such a powerful ability. You just take it off the board. Really cool card, though. I think we're going to see this in other decks. I hope that certain other cards are no longer in the game, because if we see this in maybe the Look Sleep deck, it could be incredibly obnoxious. Overall, though, I like where Mel's package has landed. I think we're going to see some more cards that help synergize with her. I think she's okay. I don't think she's a bottom tier deck. I think she sits kind of around the same tier as Shen. I think the color combo is strong. I think we've seen some good things. I think some good players are going to take Mel to to new heights. But generally speaking, as of right now, on release, I think Mel's going to be a mid tier deck. Naturally, after speaking about Mel, it makes sense to speak about Ambessa. So Ambessa, Matriarch of War, is the legend, and it is a body and order legend. What's really cool here is there is a juxtaposition. There is a real contrast between herself and Mel. They are opposite color domains, and it's really pulling into the lore, which I just think is really cool. What the legend says is when you empower something else, empower me. So they both share that part. And in this case, you may disempower me to ready a unit. So you disempower me and you have to pay a power to ready a unit. Ready unit is good. Ready unit with extra steps doesn't sound as good. However, when you actually read some of the other cards that go along with this, it sounds quite interesting. And those cards in particular that I'm talking about are cards like Ambessa's Champion. So both Ambessa Champions have the Empower keyword. Ambessa, respected and feared, is the yellow champion. This has 5 energy costs and 5 might, no power cost. You may empower it for 1 energy and 2 power, so 2 yellow powers. When empowered, it has Assault 2, and when I attack, kill an enemy unit here with less might than me. So essentially what you can do is you can play this, you can use Matriarch of War, the legend, to then immediately ready this if you've empowered it, and then you can walk in, assault, kill something. I think this is a really cool combo. I think this plus the other Ambessa legend champion that I'm going to talk about in a moment, it can both see really good synergy with the legend. The legend essentially accelerates something that has empower. And we've seen some other powerful cards that have empower that we're also going to talk about. Being able to do this from the champion zone is really strong. I think this is a really cool combo. Our other Ambessa champion unit is Ambessa the Wolf. She has a 4 energy cost and 4 might, and can be empowered for 3 energy and 1 orange rune. When empowered, I have +3 might, and I can't be dealt damage unless I'm in combat. Again, being able to accelerate this essentially with Matriarch of War is really strong. In a spell-heavy meta, this card is really going to shine, and both these champions do not have a power cost. I think Ambessa is going to be a real sleeper. You know, I think being able to play cards like the newly announced Gangplank as well, along with the Ambessa, is really good. You know, Gangplank says that it can't be, well, it can be chosen, but when it's empowered, if it's chosen, if it would be stunned, given negative might, or return to hand, it gets +3 instead. So being able to play this to attack as a threat is really big. I think we can see this deck honestly being quite strong. I think this is stronger than Mel. I think this is potentially going to be a deck that does get top 64 at regional qualifiers. I think Ambessa is going to be, you know, a real dark horse of the set. I think she's one of my stronger champions, but not up there with the sort of tier 1 champions. And naturally, speaking about tier 1 champions, we're going to leave the best for last, and I want to talk about Kennen. Kennen, Heart of the Tempest, is our first Order and Chaos champion. So Order and Chaos is purple and yellow. When people saw the champion, I think generally we weren't super impressed. It says when you play a card from anywhere other than your hand, empower me. At action speed, you can disempower to give a unit Assault 2. So it sounds okay. It sounds, you know, just fine. Where Kennen really shines is with the signature spell and the champion. So the signature spell, Lightning Rush, is a 1 energy cost, no power cost card that says look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You may choose one, add one to hand, put the rest in your trash. So it's stacked deck, but instead of recycling them, we're putting them into the trash. This works with cards that give flow. So the champion unit we're going to talk about in a moment will give things flow. It has synergy there, but it also has synergy with playing the sort of Miracle Reborn package, other cards with flow, you know, really making use of the trash. Lightning Rush also has flow itself. It has flow for 2 energy and 1 power to replay the card. So from one Lightning Rush, you can look at a lot of cards. You know, one Lightning Rush can look at up to 6 cards because we can do it once and then pay the flow cost. Lightning Rush is incredibly powerful. Stack Deck is already a really strong card. I think Stack Deck is potentially, you know, too good for the cost almost. And Lightning Rush is incredibly good. It is a very, very, very strong signature spell. And this is really what is carrying Kennen to be a real contender. We have 2 champion units for Kennen. Kennen's first champion unit, Storm of Shuriken. It is a 3 energy cost with 1 power, and it has 4 might. Kennen, Storm of Shuriken says, when you play me, burn 2. So burn is milling off the top of the deck. We're putting those cards from the top of the deck to the trash. When I conquer, give a spell in your trash flow equal to its cost this turn. What that means is this Kennen, who's already got incredible stats, 4 might is incredibly strong. You can play him from the champion zone, burn 2, that then puts some of your flow cards in the discard or some spells. You move him in, conquer a battlefield, probably walk over a unit in the process, give something flow, and then you're able to replay a spell. That means we can keep a healthy hand size. That means we can utilize cards with flow in the discard. It might mean that we're setting things up for later turns by putting additional cards in there. Maybe we're setting up our trash as well. I think this is really powerful. I think there's no doubt this Kennen is good in a number of different decks, but being able to play this out the champion zone is really strong. Kennen Storm of Shuriken is probably going to be the chosen champion a lot of the time, I think this is really synergetic with the rest of the package. Kennen Keeper of Balance is the yellow Kennen champion. This has 2 might, but it has an energy cost of 3 and no power cost. The cool thing about this Kennen, though, is that it can be hidden. Kennen Keeper of Balance can be hidden by paying a power. He also says, when you play me or when I attack, you may pay 2 energy to stun a unit this turn. Whilst there's a stunned enemy unit here, I have plus 2 might. So we can use Kennen offensively. If we're going second, we can play the Kennen, use him to attack. We can use the Kennen as a hidden, and on hidden, we can pay 2 energy to stun something. He's really versatile. I really like this card as a card. I don't know how much he's going to be played in the Kennen deck, but as a card in Riftbound, I think it's really strong. You know, I think this is the first hidden yellow unit, which I think is really important. And the ability to stun and before might is really good. So I think this is really cool. That said, Kennen looks like he's probably going to trend towards a Miracle Reanimator, play around with your trash kind of deck. Being purple, Kennen's already got access to have a lot of cards in hand, and with that signature spell, you're constantly able to look for the cards you need. Yeah, Kennen's going to be a real threat. Being able to play with your cards in trash and your cards in hand is really powerful. The cards that you're playing are also really powerful. You know, being able to constantly search for different cards, or if Kennen Storm of Shuriken gives flow to other cards like Starcross or other powerful tools, Ride the Wind. That can be, it can just be overwhelming. I think we're probably going to see Kennen play in some kind of miracle deck that's playing Seals, that's playing Rasa, making use of the trash, putting cards in the trash, probably playing Nocturne as well, to really just overwhelm the opponent. Kennen is currently one of the strongest decks of the Vendetta meta, and probably the strongest deck of this set. Right now, I'm going to put Kennen as my strongest deck. That said, I think that this deck is going to go through a lot of different processes. It's going to be innovated and innovated and innovated until we find where the deck sits. Right now, I think playing Kennen is a challenge. I think you're almost spoiled by choice, right? I think there's almost too many options, too many different ways to play. But as the set releases, I think Kennen's going to prove himself to be one of, if not the strongest deck of the set. So right now, on release of Vendetta, Kennen, I would say, is the strongest deck. He's the most potentially powerful deck. But I think it's potentially quite close. I'm really excited to see what Vendetta has in store. I'm really excited to get my hands on playing the game. I will be playing Vendetta on stream. I will post some gameplay of Vendetta. We're going to be playing a lot. I'm really looking forward to this set of Riftbound. I think there's so many cool things between the awesome overnumbereds, between the signature spells, the choice of legends. I'm so excited for Vendetta. Guys, did I get it right? Do you agree with how I've ranked these decks? What would you change? Let me know down below.